Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Knapp and Jim Geraghty.
And once again, I'm in for Greg Knapp. You can find out more about me and get a free gift at my website, GregoryKnapp.com. I also have a new podcast up. It's called Find Your Purpose, Live Your Passion. It's all in the show notes. Also joined, as always, by Jim Geraghty, the senior political correspondent of National Review, and his Twitter handle, @Jim Geraghty. That is in the show notes as well. Today's Three Martini Lunch brought to you by ZipRecruiter, and we will jump right into a good one. Another pretty good jobs report, Jim. Here's the headlines. U.S. employees added 164,000 jobs in July. The wages picked up. Unemployment rate, 3.7%. That's near the lowest in half a century. So what does this mean for the near and long-term future?
Sure. You don't want to oversay it. This was not a phenomenal off-the-charts jobs report, but 164,000 is good. Also, the adjustments indicate that the May number that was a little disappointing earlier this year looks like a one-month blip, nothing to really worry about. I think the headline that comes out of this is, another month of job numbers in, no sign of a recession on the horizon. If you're the Trump administration, this is very good news. If you're Republicans who want to have a perception that this is a president that is administering during a time of good economic news, this is further good news. I think the wage number really jumps out because for a long time we had job creation, but the wage numbers are pretty stagnant. You do kind of wonder at some point, boom times are great, but inevitably they end. And we have now had the longest expansion in history. Now, look, when you're starting after the Great Recession, at the very depths of the Depression, or the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, 2010, it's not surprising you'd have a long, slow climb out of there. And for a long time, this felt like a jobless recovery. But now it's been pretty darn good. The stock market had that nice boom when Trump won. And so far, here we are. It's starting to get to summer 2019. Nothing's gone wrong yet. There's been some concern about the tariffs and stuff like that. But, so far, so good. And, for those of us who had worried that the tariffs were going to really cause some economic headaches, that has not happened. Long term, who knows? There's always that nagging fear that the rest of the economy, the rest of the country, the rest of the world's economy slow down, and that affects us. Probably one of the more interesting measuring sticks, just to throw out here. So the U6, which is the unemployment rate that counts everybody, not just those who can't find a job, but also the folks who are doing part-time but are looking for full-time, people who want a job who aren't looking, every possible. That's down to 7%, and that's the lowest since 2000. So, all in all, this is pretty good, and smooth seas up ahead. What things are going to be like in November 2020 is still too soon to tell. But my attitude, Greg, is I take it.
Absolutely take it. And just to be clear, Jim, I want to make sure for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Kamala Harris to understand, we're still measuring unemployment by somebody who's looking for work and unable to find it, not by how many jobs they have, right?
Yeah, that's the idea that unemployment is high because everyone's working two jobs, which,
Right.
I mean, one, that's not unemployment. Two, right. If they're able to find two jobs, that's probably a good sign. Although there was some argument back during the Obama days, particularly after Obamacare kicked in, that you had once you created that new cost on employers of more than 40 hours a week, lo and behold, lots of employers were bringing their workers down to 30 hours a week. So
so shocking.
That circumstance was causing people to work two jobs when they didn't necessarily want to. But all in all, that is not the measuring stick. It's never been the measuring stick. And I think it now indicates that there are a lot of Democrats who want to promote policies that might sound better in a recession. And much to their frustration, we don't have a recession.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about politics, isn't it? Because the party out of power has to really secretly want a recession to hit before the election, which is not good for the nation, but it would be good for their party. We'll see how that goes. All right, that is Martini number one. And today, the Three Martini Lunch is brought to you by ZipRecruiter.
Yeah, funny we're talking about jobs because hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy, and you only have to go to one place to get it done, and that's ZipRecruiter.com/martini. ZipRecruiter sends your job to more than 100 of the web's leading job boards. But they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply for your job. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of every 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. And that right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/martini. That's ZipRecruiter.com/martini. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
All right. And now we're moving into a 2 for 2 crazy martinis in one day, but one might be crazy like a fox. So we start with David Brooks. He's got a piece in the New York Times, and it's about Marianne Williamson. Now, she's that self-help guru, speaker, author, existential, Far Eastern type, new age. I don't even know how to describe it all, Jim, but I think people know who I'm talking about now. She's the one that says the way you beat Trump is with love. And she's very interesting during the debates. And David Brooks says, quote, there's the headline, Marianne Williamson knows how to beat Trump. We need an uprising of decency. What do you say, Jim?
Yeah, this is kind of one of those 2 waves of flavor in the martini, crazy martinis, because the first crazy one is you pick up the New York Times. And the headline on that op-ed column from David Brooks, one of the more right of center, I don't know if people would necessarily characterize him as a full spectrum conservative anymore, but one of the right of center columnists says Marianne Williamson knows how to beat Trump. And the second crazy part is you read it and there's a certain compelling logic to it. There's a certain, it actually kind of makes a little more sense where he says, look, it is no accident that the Democratic candidate with the best grasp of this election is the one running a spiritual crusade, not an economic redistribution effort. Many of your ideas are wackadoodle. Again, this is semi-endorsement now. This right. Is the phrase, But Marianne Williamson is right about this. And he goes on to the quote, this is part of the dark underbelly of American society, the racism, the bigotry, and the entire conversation that we're having here tonight. If you think any of this wonkiness is going to deal with this dark psychic force of the collectivized hatred that this president is bringing up in this country, then I'm afraid that the Democrats are going to see some very dark days. Now, whether or not you believe Trump himself is bringing up dark psychic forces, you and I talked earlier in the week when you think about hatred, bigotry, extremism, the sort of thing that makes somebody shoot up a synagogue or the guy who tried to throw fire bombs at the ICE facility up in Tacoma, that is dark psychic force, right? That is that kind of rage, And she goes on to say, we've never dealt with a figure like this in American history before. This man, our president, is not just a politician, he's a phenomenon. I think Trump would agree with that. An insider political game will not be able to defeat it. The only thing that will defeat him is if we have a phenomenon of equal force, and that phenomenon is a moral uprising of the American people. Now, love Trump, hate Trump. I think the description that he is a phenomenon and outside the traditional realm of politics is accurate. And, that he tapped into some deep-rooted emotions as during his rise in 2016, right? There's this, now his emotions he was tapping into were generally anger, right? Frustration. In today's Morning Jolt, I talk about all the different populist promises that Barack Obama had made in 2008 as the Democratic candidate. He had said he was going to, he didn't use the term drain the swamp, but he said we weren't going to have lobbyists working in the White House and in government. And and then he said, okay, yes, we will. He too said that he was not happy with NAFTA and that he wanted to renegotiate it to, stand up for work. We need trade agreements that work for Main Street, not just Wall Street. NAFTA remained the same during the Obama presidency. Obama bashed the bailouts of Wall Street and the banks all the time. Easy to forget that Obama voted for that bailout. So there was kind of this, if you were a populist, Obama was speaking a good game when he was, then senator and running for office. Then he got into office and he wasn't as good as he'd hoped. And all that built up into anger and frustration in this sense that the game was rigged, in the sense that the rich and powerful could do whatever they wanted, never were held accountable and stuff. And Trump tapped into that. Yeah, I know a bunch of the Democrats are trying to tap into that same sentiment right now. I don't know if Marianne Williamson will get above more than the couple percentage points she's got so far. I don't think she's going to be the Democratic nominee. But I do think when she says, that these elections I lament that elections revolve around emotions and not say math. But in the end, I do think this is what moves voters. And I do think this is the sort of thing where if you want to make the argument against Trump, you do have to make that emotion. That not just we're better than this and lecture people, but talk about the good parts. Talk about what you see as he said he wants to make America great again. Maybe you believe America was always great, and Trump is off his rocker when he says this. But you have to paint that picture of that better America, right? You've got to basically give somebody, if you don't like hope and change, something optimistic, right? Something that says, here's this better future within reach, and here's what we have to do to get there.
Absolutely. And they're not doing that. I mean, if you look at the Democrats that are in the debate, it's like they're saying that America was never great. And in fact, there are Democrats that have come out and said that about Make America Great Again. And of course, they also try to make it seem like Trump's talking about when we had slavery or when we had Jim Crow. And obviously that's not what he's trying to refer to. But what I think is interesting about that, Jim, is Marianne Williamson saying, it's not policy that's going to change these problems with America culturally. Well, that's something that conservatives, and in particular Christian conservatives, has said for decades. Mm-hmm. That, look, the problem with the family, the problem with crime, the problem with poverty is not something that government programs are going to fix. It's going to take a spiritual awakening. It's going to take, caring about each other, and it's going to take non-governmental organizations like Salvation Army and other places, and people tithing. And when people say that on the right, we're called all kinds of horrible names. Marianne Williamson says it, and all of a sudden David Brooks loves her. But I do like that part. What I'm tired of, Jim, and you alluded to it, look, Trump, he's basically saying if only Donald Trump were not president, we could talk about policy. But no, we have to talk about the moral atmosphere in which we raise our children, all because of Trump. Now, look, I'm tired of Democrats and liberals and celebrities and members of the media, I'm repeating myself, all saying Trump is why we have this horrible moral atmosphere. Now, I grant you, and I think we'll agree, Jim, what Trump says and what he tweets and the way he says these things, he says it in ways I wouldn't. But so do the Democrats, and they've been doing it for decades. I mean, anybody who disagrees with them, you're racist, you're sexist, you're xenophobic, you're homophobic, you're Islamophobic, you're a monster. That's how we got Trump, right? I mean, Obama was an expert at that. If you disagreed with him, it wasn't because you had a different idea. It was because you were racist or something else. And so Trump fought back on that because people were tired of Republicans who would not fight back. Remember, Biden said to a largely black audience that Romney was going to, quote, put y'all back in chains. I mean, remember, the Dems ran ads showing Paul Ryan literally throwing a grandmother in a wheelchair over a cliff. If you go back to the 1998 campaign, I looked this up today, there were ads aimed at black people that said, when you don't vote, you let another church explode. Vote, you allow another cross to burn. Vote smart, vote Democrat for Congress, and on and on. And I think the average person, Jim, was just tired of being called every name in the book because they actually love the country. They love the founding documents. They want our laws enforced. They wanted taxes to be lower and to be left alone. And they were tired of nice guys like Romney and McCain losing. Yeah,
probably like the distilled antithesis of what Marianne Williamson is talking about was at the same debate night when Kirsten Gillibrand said that she had the ability to go around to tell white suburban women how they were benefiting from white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a part of me, I'm sure the Trump administration will be like, oh, please nominate her. Please do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is exactly the kind of, first of all, tone-deaf, condescending. By the way, Kirsten Gillibrand comes from a very, well-off and politically connected family. Okay? Her grandmother was active in, basically her grandmother was the Albany political machine for a lot of years. And her dad was a lobbyist in Albany. Let's not kid her. So she's, out of all the people on that stage, maybe one of the worst people to go around to, white steel mill workers and say, hey, you guys don't know how good you have it because of the color of your skin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing I say on that, Jim, is it sounds great to be, elevate the dialogue, but unilaterally disarming allows the other guy to knock your teeth out, because negative campaigning and negative advertising works. As much as we complain about it, we all know it works.
Yeah. And again, this was the week that almost everybody in the Democratic field defended Al Sharpton.
Yeah.
No accountability for, if you, a couple times this week, I've mentioned you grew up outside New York City in the 1980s. Al Sharpton's the guy who went into a tense situation and figured out how to make it worse. And there's never been any accountability for Tawana Brawley. There's never been accountability for Freddie Spashing Mark. All these things that, and again, that unwillingness to, when people say we need an honest conversation about race, that's part of that conversation. But, a lot of Democrats don't want to have that part.
Amen. Absolutely.
Maybe they'll find another candidate. Who knows?
All right, we're on to Martini number 3, another crazy one. We're bringing in Michael Moore. Michael Moore has someone he wants to run. We've got the audio.
I think, in my humble opinion, 4 of these candidates running could beat Trump: Bernie, Biden, Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren. They could beat him. But Hillary beat him. It's not enough just to beat Trump. The only way to remove Trump is to crush Trump. Who's the street fighter? And frankly, I think if the election were held today, there is one person that would crush Trump, and she hasn't announced yet. And her last name rhymes with Obama. In fact, it is Obama. Michelle Obama. Everybody watching this right now knows she is a beloved American, and she would go in there and she would beat him. She would beat him in the debates. He wouldn't be able to bully her. He wouldn't be able to nickname her. And she is beloved.
Okay, before we get into the talk about Michelle Obama, I just have one point I wanted to make, Jim. He said Hillary beat Trump. No, Hillary lost, because the way you win is you win 270 electoral college votes. Trump did. She didn't. Winning the popular vote doesn't matter, because that's not how our election works. And if it did, people would campaign differently to get popular votes. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then, Jim, what do you say about Michelle?
Sure. Well, first of all, let's observe that, winning the Electoral College gets you the presidency. Winning the popular vote gets you nothing, not even like $1 off at Starbucks.
Exactly.
Think about it. I think Howard Schultz should organize something like that. If you win the popular vote for the president, you should at least get $1 off. You should get a coupon or something. Second point, it's, let's face it, Michael Moore, Obama does not rhyme with Obama. Obama is Obama. But so I'm curious about why MSNBC, this is the sort of appearance where if you're an MSNBC producer, I wonder why you've invited Michael Moore on, and I wonder if you want to invite Michael Moore on again, because in the end of it, he's basically saying, but wouldn't it be nice if Michelle Obama ran for president and we could all unite around her? Yeah, I guess that would be nice. I have seen no indication that she has any interest in this. In fact, when the time she does interviews and gets asked about this, she sounds like it's the absolute last thing she wants to do. For whatever disagreements we have on policy, Michelle Obama always struck me as a woman who seemed to have a good head on her shoulders. And I get the feeling she didn't really enjoy all the scrutiny and all the things that, all the different ways your life gets disrupted when you become First Lady of the United States. You want your kids to have a normal childhood as much as you can. There's a lot of stress that comes with that position. So first of all, she seems to have zero interest in it whatsoever. Secondly, I think it's probably a bad sign for Democrats that Michael Moore, and he does say that there are 4 candidates he thinks are fine, but he's, we're as I said, we're 7 months into this Democratic primary race. Eric Swalwell has already come and gone. I know it's easy to forget because he didn't make that much of an impression when he was here, but we're fairly well into this. You want to say to Democrats, this is what you get. To paraphrase Rick Pitino, Larry Bird is not walking through that door. There is no better candidate about to walk through the door to save you from the frustrations you have in this primary. This is what's at the buffet table, and it's the biggest selection of candidates any party's ever had. If you can't find something you like in this list, you're probably in deep, deep trouble. And second, one of the reasons everybody likes Michelle Obama, or that she has extremely high approval ratings, both within the Democratic Party and amongst probably everybody except outside of committed Republicans, is that she wasn't a terribly partisan figure. Michelle Obama's never introduced a piece of legislation. She's never vetoed a bill. She's never had, because she's outside of the political realm, people who aren't that into politics, remember her telling people to drink more water and get kids. People didn't necessarily like the healthy meals deal in schools, but it's kind of this sad wish list. And this is why I made this kind of the crazy martini that Michael Moore, with more options than ever before, is sitting around dreaming of Michelle Obama riding in on a white horse to rescue the party.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And I even wonder how would that go, even though she is beloved, because the Democrats right now in the last debate attacked a bunch of Obama policies, which is kind of interesting. And you hit on something I just wanted to highlight. No time in history, recent history, would more people on the Democratic side want to run because everybody thinks they can beat Trump, right? I mean, so everybody's out there. I mean, we had over 20 people and none of them are good enough. Why? And I wonder, part of what's going on, I think, who wants to be president? I mean, for real, regular people, who is, if you're not a narcissist, why would you want that job? And it's very hard for me to think of somebody who I would want to be president actually wanting that job.
Yeah, in a way, the first qualification for the job is to have a sense of trepidation about the job,
right?
A recognition of the awesome responsibilities that you have, and something that doesn't come up often enough in these primary debates. And everybody can have these great plans. The question you'd like to put to all these guys is: are you ready to write letters to the families of soldiers who are slain because of an operation you approved? Because that happens to just about every president. No president is going to go out and say, I promise to never commit any U.S. forces to any potential combat or dangerous situations ever. At some point it's going to happen. And you're going to have to write those letters, and you're going to have to console those families. And you're going to know that those good men died because of a decision you made. You didn't intend it. You thought the risk was acceptable. You knew there was a risk. You thought the objective was worthwhile. The very best situation, people can die. And that's a big responsibility to live with. And if that intimidates you, good, because it should. That is the fact. If it intimidates you, it means you take it seriously. And there's this nagging feeling that a good chunk of the people on both this debate stage for the Democrats and the last one for the Republicans, that their primary preparation for the job was to look in the mirror and say, "Yes, Mr. President, you're looking good today, Mr. President. That was a great idea, Mr. President." Kind of that old joke that 100 senators look in the mirror and they see a potential president staring back at them. I think you're right on that. I think that there is, inevitably, you want to run. Normal, healthy, well-adjusted people are understandably reluctant to run for office. It's not fun. Yep. People like me in the media will sniff out if you ever went bankrupt, that's going to be an issue. Ever had a messy divorce? Yeah, that's going to be an issue. Parking tickets? Remember the speeding tickets of Marco Rubio's wife? Remember his allegedly luxurious yacht? The Rubio crime spree in which he, drank red wine with fish and wore white slacks after Labor Day. That's part of the process. Now, on the one hand, I kind of feel like, look, you want the most powerful job in the world, you're going to have to be able to live with the scrutiny. That's part of this process. We don't want somebody coming in and just showing up and hoping for the best. On the other hand, the level of scrutiny that the modern media has in an era where everybody wants clicks, everybody wants, outrage clicks if necessary, and everybody wants to be Woodward and Bernstein, to have some pelt on their wall. Everybody wants to write the article that ends a campaign, particularly a Republican campaign. You end up in a situation where normal, well-adjusted people say, I care about my country, but I'll find some other way to do something. I don't want to deal with the process of that. And I remember governing is tough in the best of circumstances. So, absolutely. But anyway, I don't know about you, Greg. But more and more, I feel like there's a gap between the way I see the job of the presidency and the way a good chunk of the electorate sees the job of the presidency. No doubt about it, and definitely a lot different than it was designed in the founding. So we'll see where it leads. The 3 Martini Lunch. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Greg Krumbus, joined by Jim Geraghty, senior political correspondent of National Review. His Twitter handle is @JimGeraghty.com. My website, GregoryBKnapp.com. It's all in the show notes. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you're not too tipsy.